It's time to start planting that garden, and I'm really looking forward to it this year. This year I'm going to try to double the garden. I'm a little bit concerned about preparing for food shortages, so I've got my seeds. I just got in an order from Haas Tool in the mail, and I went to Lowe's and picked up some more. These are herbs that I'll start in my green stalk. Then I've got some snap beans, pole beans, container varieties, and then varieties that need to grow up on a trellis. I've got my greens, cabbages. This choy Chinese cabbage was a great item that I grew last year. Very tasty, comes up, no problem at all. But you can see I've got a nice layout. I'm going to do Swiss chard again because I can do that early, and that is really delicious. I love the Swiss chard. You can eat it as a salad or cook it. There's the peppers that I had great success with last year. I'm going to do a lot more flowers too this year. These are the celebrity tomatoes that my neighbor grew, and they were pretty much created for our area that gets really hot summer, so I'm anxious to try those. He had great success with them. I'm going to try again carrots. I've never had a lot of luck with carrots, but anyway, these are all my seeds. These were the red zipper peas, and I saved some, so I'm going to start saving more seeds. There's my Cherokee tan pumpkin seeds. Of course, that is going to make a lot of pumpkins. I'm going to give some of that away. And then my loofah sponge seeds. I'm going to grow a lot more loofah sponge this year. I didn't last year, but they're great to have in the garden. So anyway, I was really excited about getting all these out and looking to see what I need to pick up and what I already have. Now, I had a set of the botanical seeds from 2020, and I just want to make sure if they're still viable. So here is a great tip if you've got some old seeds to see if they still will grow. I just take a paper towel and I cut it to fit a Ziploc bag, and then I'm spraying it down, wetting it with some just plain water. And then I've kind of on the Ziploc bag made a grid and labeled the seeds. Now I'm going to place those seeds on the paper towel exactly like is on the Ziploc bag. And just like 2 or 3 seeds, maybe 4, not many, but we're just trying to see if they're still any good before I throw these away. And like I said, I had these from 2020, so I'm just not real sure if they're still good. And by doing just a few, then you don't have to mess up your whole pack. So I'm going to do those on the paper towel. You wet it down really good. You keep it nice and moist. Put it back in the Ziploc bag, and then I set it on one of my heated mats. And we'll see in about 3 to 4 days if there are any viable. The ones that don't come up, I know to go ahead and throw that pack away and clean out my seed box. But this is just a great way for you, if you've, like me, and had all these seeds saved. You just want to make sure they're still good. And if they're not, then you need to clear them out and make room for your new ones. So here's some leeks. I'm going to try those to see how they do. But I always like to get my seeds set up before I start planting them. And probably by the end of January, 1st of February, I will start my seeds indoors with the grow lights in my dining room. And this will help me get ready for that. Okay, now I've placed them back in the Ziploc bag, and the seeds are underneath the name so that I can determine which seeds I can keep or which ones I can throw out. It's a very easy process. Just make sure that the paper towel is nice and wet. And the heat mat that I have, you need to put it in a warm place if you don't have a heat mat. But I like to use my heat mat. And I'll have all of those out of the greenhouse soon and start setting up in my dining room for seed starting. I just place these on here, and I'll check back in 3 or 4 days with you and let you know which ones are still viable. That's just a neat trick. Just make sure your seeds are good instead of worrying about trying to plant them. If they're not any good, you just throw them out. And I took the red ripper peas today and I opened those up and put them in a little box. I've got to find a place in the yard to plant these because they are climbers. So that's another thing, is when I start bringing out my seeds, I need to really sit down and think about where I'm going to plant what's going in containers, what's going in the ground, what's going in my raised beds. So I always get a new composition book for the gardening season, and this one is for 2022. And then I kind of just look at my seeds and I start dividing out sections. One will be for containers, and then I will list all of the seeds that I have to go in my containers. And if I need to get more containers, which I don't think I will because my dad has turned over all his gardening containers to me. He is done. He doesn't want to do it anymore, so I will be growing for him. And then I kind of look at my seeds and determine what I can put into containers. And I have done driveway gardening where I set up all my containers along the side of the driveway, and I had really good success with that. But now that my backyard is nice and sunny, thanks to hurricanes coming through and taking out my trees, I can do most of my gardening now in the backyard. So I kind of went through and decided what things I'm going to plant in the containers, what things in the raised beds, and listed all of that into my notebook. And then the next step would be to see which seeds I can start inside and get those going. And I'll write those dates in my notebook as well. So this is a good idea. If you're a first-time gardener, you need to write these things down. You need to find out what your last frost date is. And then that's when you start your seeds, either 4 to 8 weeks before your last frost date. Now here is the backyard layout, and I'm on about an acre in an older established neighborhood. I've been here over 30 years in this home. And in the back you can see my husband's new garage. The trees fell on his last garage. There's my chickens and my run. And there's my little kitchen garden on the right side of the backyard. There is my greenhouse and my water barrels. And so in deciding to double the size of the garden, I'm going to need to take out some smaller trees and some azalea bushes. So that's what I walked out before the weather got bad and started videoing and deciding how I was going to expand this garden. And you can see my compost pile over there. I am really thinking about moving that. I'm thinking about moving around some of these raised beds. But it's just, I've got to sit down and really plan this out because I want to maximize my growing space and try to grow as much food as possible. Now you see there's the compost area, and I would really love to get a couple of rabbits, mainly for fertilizer and for the grandkids to play with. And then this section, I'd like to take these beds out and put in a hoop house or a plastic greenhouse. Got to talk the husband into that one. And over on this side of the yard, I've got about 12 feet from where that swing set is to the fence. And there is around to the front yard. So this flowering cherry tree has a lot of dead wood in the top of it, and we're going to take that out, chop it down, and then work our way back to the backyard, taking out all of these azaleas. Now we can cut them back and then put them on the other side of our wood fence that we are putting around the backyard to kind of keep the deer out of our garden. I've had a problem with that in the past. But we're going to take out all these azaleas. That is some really good dirt in there. My neighbor planted his garden after taking out azaleas, and he's had great success. So I've got a couple of apple trees there. I'd like to put some more fruit trees in the backyard. So I'm working on this process now. Those two front beds have never really done anything, so I'm going to take those up, and I'd like to put a couple of fruit trees there. There's one apple tree this is the 3rd year now, and it's really getting tall. So I'm excited about that. And then I have another apple tree right down beside it so they can cross-pollinate. But I've got a lot of work to do. I've certainly got to get feeling better before I can get all these azaleas out. Okay, walking back to the other side of the yard. I really would love to get a little rabbit pen beside the chicken coop there, and maybe move my compost bin to another part of the yard, and then put the grow tunnel right here. Then I can pretty much grow year round. So looking at grower solutions at some of the smaller sizes and see what I can come up with. It's all in the planning stage right now. And then my spiral garden is going to be just full of flowers this year to make sure I can get a lot of pollinators back to the backyard. And my greenhouse is about 10 years old now, and I would love to take the siding off of that and turn it into a potting shed, put a more substantial roof and sides on it, and just use that mainly for my feeds and fertilizers and all of my yard equipment. Now these green stalks, I will probably not buy any more of those. They do not do very well for me. I want to plant herbs in them, but this is my 2nd year and I just really haven't had a lot of good luck with them. So I don't think I will be investing in that again. But I did go around and take a lot of pictures of the backyard and kind of decided where my fence is going and what I'm taking out. Kind of getting an idea for my husband so he can help me. And then the green dots are where I can put containers up on my large deck. So I'm getting real excited. This is last year's garden at the beginning, and I'm getting that garden fever like everybody else does in January. So now's a good time to start planning, thinking ahead of how I'm going to grow my garden. And this year I think the food security in this nation is at a point where we all need to do a little backyard gardening just to make sure that we have plenty to eat. So I highly recommend Haas Tool Seeds. I've had great luck with them. And I just wanted to share that with you today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a very blessed day. And I always seem to lose my voice at the very end of the videos. But again, thank you for subscribing and liking. And if you have any questions about gardening, just leave those below in the comments. Thank you.